The morning I found that my husband had deleted 4 years of my writing from my laptop, I sat on the kitchen floor and cried until I could not breathe. 4 years. Every night. After he went to sleep. Every word of a novel I had poured my whole soul into. Gone. The folder was empty. The file was gone. The recycle bin was empty too. Bradley had made sure of that. I remember holding my coffee mug in both hands, staring at the screen, and whispering to myself, "It is over. All of it. Gone." What I did not know, sitting on that cold kitchen floor in Nashville, Tennessee, was that a woman in New York City was already reading my manuscript, and she was about to change my entire life. Her name was Catherine Mitchell, and 3 weeks earlier, she had walked into the public library where I worked and left a single sentence scribbled on a piece of paper that I would not understand the meaning of until it was too late for my husband to stop me. But let me start from the beginning. My name is Margaret Donovan, but everyone calls me Maggie. I am 42 years old, and I have lived in Nashville, Tennessee my entire life. I grew up on a small farm about 30 miles outside the city, the fourth of 7 children. My father was a Baptist pastor, and my mother was a schoolteacher who retired when I was 12 to take care of my youngest brother, who was born with a heart condition. We did not have much money, but we had books. My mother's one rule in our house was that there always had to be books. Even when we could not afford new clothes, she found a way to bring home used paperbacks from the thrift store in town. I learned to read before I was 5 years old. By 7, I was writing stories in a little green notebook my mother gave me for my birthday. I still have that notebook. It sits in a drawer in my bedroom, and sometimes, on the hardest nights, I open it just to remember the little girl who believed she could do anything. I met Bradley when I was 23. He was charming, ambitious, and full of big plans. His father owned a small real estate office in Nashville, and Bradley was already talking about taking it over one day and turning it into the biggest agency in the state. He made me feel like I was part of something big, something that mattered. We got married when I was 25. I was going to study English literature at Vanderbilt University, but I dropped out my junior year because Bradley said we should focus on his business first. "Your turn will come, Maggie," he told me. "We just need to get through this rough patch." The rough patch lasted 19 years. I took a part-time job at the Nashville Central Public Library. It was supposed to be temporary, something to help pay the bills while Bradley built his empire. But I fell in love with that library. The regulars would come in every week and ask me for recommendations. I knew every shelf, every author, every obscure little book that almost nobody checked out. And at night, after Bradley went to bed, I wrote. My novel was called The Silent Daughters. It was a story about 3 sisters growing up in a small southern town in the 1960s, inside a strict religious family that did not let women speak for themselves. It was not exactly autobiographical, but every page of it had pieces of me in it. Pieces of my mother, pieces of my grandmother. Pieces of all the women I had grown up watching swallow their own voices so that the men in their lives could be heard louder. I wrote 400 pages of that book, 4 years of my life. Nobody knew about it except me, not my sisters, not my mother, and definitely not Bradley. Because I already knew what Bradley would say. Bradley did not believe in dreams that did not come with a paycheck attached. He called my love of reading a cute little hobby. He called writers people who do not want to get a real job. Once, when I mentioned that I had always wanted to try writing something, he laughed and said, "Honey, the world does not need another housewife pretending she is the next Harper Lee." I never brought it up again. So I wrote in secret, on my old laptop, in the hours between midnight and 3 in the morning, when the house was quiet and Bradley was snoring upstairs. It was my secret, my sanctuary, the one place in my whole life where my voice was louder than his. And then, on a Tuesday afternoon in April, a woman walked into my library and changed everything. She came in alone, mid-60s maybe, silver hair cut short, a long charcoal coat even though it was warm outside. She walked straight up to the reference desk where I was sitting with my laptop open. I had been working on a scene during my lunch break. A scene where the oldest sister, Ruth, finally tells her father that she is going to leave the farm and go to college. I had not saved it yet. "Good afternoon," she said. Her voice was calm, low, unhurried. "I am looking for a first edition of a novel called The Heart is a Lonely Hunter by Carson McCullers. I heard you might have a copy in your special collections." I looked up at her, surprised. "We do, actually. It is in the back room. Would you like me to go get it for you?" "I would appreciate that." I stood up, pushed my chair back, and walked toward the back. I did not close my laptop. I did not even think about it. It was not like anyone was going to sit down and read my unfinished draft in the 30 seconds I would be gone. Except she did. When I came back with the book in my hands, she was leaning over my desk, one hand resting on the edge of the laptop, reading. Her eyes were moving slowly across the screen. She was not scrolling. She was reading. Really reading. "Oh," I said, flustered. "I am so sorry. That is not, that is mine. I was writing on my lunch break." She looked up at me. She did not smile. She did not apologize. She just looked at me with this expression I could not read. Then she said, very quietly, "Who wrote this?" I did. "You are a writer?" I felt my face turn red. "Oh no. No. It is just a hobby. Something I have been working on for a few years. Nothing serious." "How long is it?" "About 400 pages. It is not finished yet." She was quiet for a long moment. Then she nodded slowly, as if she was making a decision about something. She reached into her coat pocket and pulled out a small notebook and a pen. She tore out a page, wrote something on it, and slid it across the desk to me. On the paper, in small, tidy handwriting, she had written one sentence. "Send it to Catherine@bemreaderegmail.com when you have a chance. No rush." "I would love to read the rest of it," she said, "if you do not mind." "You want to read my novel?" "I do." I stared at her. I did not know what to say. Nobody had ever asked to read my writing before. Nobody had ever looked at a page of it and said, "Send me more." I did not even know how to react. "Why?" I finally asked. She smiled for the first time, a small, tired smile. "Because I have not read anything this honest in a very long time." She thanked me for the book, paid the fee for the special collection rental, and walked out of the library. I stood there holding her little note in my hand, feeling like I had just imagined the whole thing. That night, after Bradley fell asleep, I sat on the living room couch with my laptop and stared at her email address for almost an hour. I told myself she was probably just being polite, that she would open the file once and forget it existed, but I hit send anyway. And then I closed my laptop, walked upstairs, and crawled into bed next to a man who had no idea that the quietest thing his wife had ever done was also the loudest. A week passed, then 2. I did not hear anything back from Catherine, and I started to feel foolish for having sent the manuscript at all. I had almost convinced myself to forget the whole thing when Bradley's younger brother, Keith, and his wife, Denise, came over for dinner on a Saturday night. Bradley had been drinking bourbon since 5 in the afternoon. I had learned to recognize that mood of his over the years, loud and mean under the charm. I made a roast chicken with rosemary potatoes. Denise brought a pie. We sat down at the dining room table and ate, and Bradley told his usual stories about real estate deals and golf games and some client who had tried to lowball him on a commission. Then, out of nowhere, he said, "Hey, Keith, you want to hear something funny?" I froze with my fork halfway to my mouth. "Maggie thinks she is writing a book," Bradley said. He was already laughing. Keith raised his eyebrows. "Oh yeah? 4 years she has been working on it. 4 years. Sneaking out of bed in the middle of the night like she is having an affair with a laptop." Denise gave me a small, uncomfortable smile. "What is it about, Maggie?" I opened my mouth to answer, but Bradley cut me off. Hold on. Let me show you. I saw it on her computer the other day when she was in the shower. It is in here somewhere. He stood up, walked into the living room, and came back with my laptop. My laptop. He had my password. He had always had my password. I had never thought twice about it. He opened the laptop at the table. He scrolled through my files. He found the folder marked The Silent Daughters. He opened the manuscript. "Okay, here we go," he said. "Listen to this." Chapter 1. And then, in front of his brother and his brother's wife, my husband started reading my novel out loud in a high, mocking voice. He read the opening paragraph. He read a dialogue scene between two of the sisters. He read a line where the mother character prays silently in the kitchen while her husband yells at her oldest daughter in the next room. The woman folded the dough with hands that had folded 1,000 things she was never allowed to say out loud, Bradley read, his voice dripping with sarcasm. "Oh my God, listen to this stuff, Keith. She thinks she is Isabel Allende." Keith laughed. Denise did not. Denise was looking down at her plate. I sat there, frozen. My hands were shaking under the table. My face was burning. I could not speak. I could not move. I could not even stand up and walk away. 4 years, Keith. 4 years of this. Writing about women folding dough and praying in kitchens. Who is going to read this? Seriously. Who is going to buy a book about 3 Southern girls crying about their feelings? Keith was still laughing, but a little quieter now. Denise finally looked up at me. "I think it sounds lovely, Maggie." "Lovely," Bradley repeated, mimicking her tone. "That is exactly my point. Lovely. Lovely does not sell books. Lovely does not pay the bills. Lovely is what my wife does when she is supposed to be doing something useful." He closed the laptop with a loud thump and carried it back to the living room. I did not finish dinner. I went upstairs, and I lay in bed, fully clothed, staring at the ceiling for 3 hours until the voices downstairs finally left and the house went quiet. Bradley came to bed around midnight. He smelled like bourbon. He did not say anything to me. He just lay down, and within minutes, he was snoring. I waited until 3 in the morning. Then I got up and went downstairs to look at my laptop. The folder was empty. The file was gone. Every backup copy on the hard drive had been deleted. He had even emptied the recycle bin. 4 years of my life, erased while I slept. I sank to the kitchen floor and I cried like I had not cried since I was a little girl. I did not sleep that night. I did not sleep the next night either. I went through the motions at the library. I shelved books. I helped patrons find audiobooks for their road trips. I answered questions about the new Colleen Hoover release. And inside, I felt like something important in me had died. On Thursday morning, 4 days after Bradley deleted the file, I was sitting at the reference desk when my phone buzzed with a new email. I almost did not open it. I thought it was spam. The subject line said, "I finished your manuscript." The sender was Catherine.m@readerrogmail.com. My hands started shaking before I even clicked on it. "Maggie, I finished The Silent Daughters last night. I stayed up until 4 in the morning to read the last 100 pages. I cannot remember the last time a manuscript did that to me. I need to talk to you, not over email. Is there any way you could come to New York next week? I would cover your flight and your hotel. There is something I want to discuss with you in person. Please call me at the number below when you have a moment. Catherine." Underneath the message was a phone number with a 212 area code. Manhattan. I read the email 7 times. Then I did what any woman in my position would do. I opened a new tab and I typed her email address into Google. The first result was a page on the website of a major New York publishing house. The page was titled "Meet Our Team," and at the top of the page, smiling out from a professional headshot in a charcoal coat, was Catherine Mitchell, Senior Executive Editor, 31 years in publishing, discovered 7 New York Times bestsellers, edited 2 Pulitzer Prize finalists. I put my phone face down on the desk. I walked to the employee bathroom. I closed the stall door behind me. And I sat down on the closed toilet lid and I cried again, but this time it was a completely different kind of crying. Bradley had deleted my novel, but he had deleted it 4 days too late. The woman who had asked me to send her my book 3 weeks earlier was one of the most powerful editors in American publishing, and she already had every word of it. I called Catherine back from the bathroom. My voice was shaking so badly that I had to clear my throat twice before I could speak. "Catherine, it is Maggie, from the library in Nashville. Maggie, I was hoping you would call. I just looked you up. I did not know who you were when you came to the library. I know you did not. That is why I did it that way. Why? Because I wanted to see if you could write, not if you could impress me. Those are two very different things." I laughed through my tears. It was the first time I had laughed in 5 days. "So," she said, her voice calm and warm, "can you come to New York on Tuesday?" "Yes," I whispered. "Yes, I can come." I did not tell Bradley. I told him I was going to Memphis for a library conference. He did not even ask for details. He just nodded and reminded me to pick up dry cleaning on my way back. The meeting in New York lasted 3 hours. Catherine laid everything out for me. Her publishing house wanted to buy The Silent Daughters immediately. She was offering a 2-book deal. The advance was $65,000 for the first book and another $50,000 for the second. Catherine herself would be my editor. She had already spoken to the publisher that morning, and he had approved the offer. I signed the contract on a Tuesday in a conference room on the 34th floor of a building in Midtown Manhattan. I was wearing a simple blue dress I had bought at a department store in Nashville the day before. My hands were shaking so much that Catherine offered me a glass of water before I could even hold the pen. When I got back to Nashville, I did not tell Bradley anything. I kept writing in secret, just like before. But now I had a real editor, a real deadline, and a real future that belonged only to me. 5 months later, The Silent Daughters was published. I had quietly moved out of the house 2 weeks before the release date. I rented a small 1-bedroom apartment near the library. I took the green notebook my mother had given me for my 7th birthday with me. I left a note for Bradley on the kitchen counter that said only 3 words: "I am done." The book came out on a Tuesday. By Thursday, it was being reviewed in the New York Times Book Review. By Saturday, it had been picked up by Reese's Book Club, the most powerful book club in America. The email I got from Reese Witherspoon's team still makes me cry when I read it. This book is exactly the kind of story we exist to celebrate. Welcome to the club, Maggie. Within 3 weeks, The Silent Daughters was number 7 on the New York Times bestseller list. Within 6 weeks, it was number 2. It stayed in the top 10 for 4 months. Catherine called me one afternoon while I was sitting at my new writing desk in my new apartment. "Maggie," she said, "a production company in Los Angeles just made an offer on the television rights. They want to turn it into a limited series, 8 episodes. They are asking you to be an executive producer." I put the phone down, and I walked to my window, and I looked out at Nashville, and I thought about my mother's little green notebook, and about every night I had spent writing in the dark while Bradley snored upstairs, and about all the years I had believed that my voice did not matter. Then I picked the phone back up, and I said, "Yes, tell them yes." The book tour started a month later. 22 cities. Book signings at independent bookstores in every region of the country. Women coming up to me in line with tears in their eyes, telling me that my book made them feel seen for the first time in their lives. One woman in Charleston told me she had put down her husband's birthday card and picked up a pen to start writing her own novel after finishing mine. And the most incredible part? I had already started writing the second book. Catherine was going to be my editor again. I had a 3-book deal in the works. My agent was fielding offers from 3 more production companies. I had found my voice, and I was never giving it back. Bradley found out the way most of Nashville found out. He was watching the local morning news while drinking his coffee. The anchor was doing a segment about homegrown Tennessee talent. And finally this morning, Nashville's own Maggie Donovan is making headlines across the country. Her debut novel, The Silent Daughters, is now #2 on the New York Times bestseller list, and a major Hollywood production company has just acquired the television rights for a rumored 7-figure deal. According to Keith, who told me about it months later, Bradley dropped his coffee mug on the floor. His phone started ringing within minutes. First it was his co-workers at the real estate office. Then it was his clients. Then it was his golf buddies. Everybody had the same question. Wait, is Maggie Donovan your wife? He did not know what to say. He had not spoken to me in 4 months. The divorce papers had been served the week after I moved out, and I had a very good lawyer. Keith sent me a text message the day after the news broke. It was long. I will share just the last line. Maggie, I was at that dinner that night. I laughed at my brother reading your book out loud, and I have thought about it every single day since. You are a brilliant writer. I am so sorry. Denise asks about you every week. She is reading your book for her book club. I did not reply to Keith, not because I was angry, because I had nothing to say that would make him feel better, and I was done making men in that family feel better. Bradley tried to call me 3 times. I did not answer. He showed up at my book signing at Parnassus Books in Nashville, the big local bookstore. I saw him standing in the back of the line, holding a copy of my book. When he finally reached the signing table, he opened his mouth to speak. I looked up at him. I smiled politely, and I signed my name on the title page exactly the way I had signed it for the 200 strangers before him. Thank you for coming, I said. I hope you enjoy it. And then I looked at the next person in line. Bradley stood there for a moment, frozen. Then he turned around and he walked out of the bookstore. I never saw him again. Today, I am writing this from the back porch of a small farmhouse I bought outside of Nashville last year. My second novel comes out in the spring. The limited series starts filming in August. My mother lives with me now. She sits in the rocking chair by the window with a cup of tea, reading advance copies of books Catherine sends me and telling me which ones she likes best. On the first page of The Silent Daughters, there is a dedication. It says, "For every woman who was told her stories were not worth writing down." I wrote that line the night Bradley laughed at my book. I added it to the manuscript the morning I signed the contract in New York. Catherine told me it was the most powerful dedication she had ever read. Sometimes when I am alone in the farmhouse and the light is soft and the kettle is boiling, I open my old green notebook. The one my mother gave me when I was 7. The one with the little girl handwriting that said, "Someday I am going to write a book." I look at those words, and I think about the woman who sat on a kitchen floor in the middle of the night, believing that everything had been taken from her. I want to tell her something. I want to tell her this. Silence is not the absence of words. Silence is the sound of a woman deciding what she is going to do next. And when she finally speaks, she does not whisper. She writes it down, and she signs her name on the cover.